Dr. Yuna Kim pressed her face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the planet Velthera grow larger below them. The world looked like a giant blue marble with silver streaks running across its surface. 3 moons hung in the dark sky around it, perfectly still and silent. "First time seeing an alien world, Dr. Kim?" asked Captain Jiwoo from the pilot's seat. His voice carried a mix of excitement and nervousness that Yuna felt too. "Yes, and I hope it goes better than the simulations," Yuna replied, checking her translation device one more time. She had spent 2 years learning everything humans knew about the Velthari people, but that wasn't very much. The blue-skinned aliens had contacted Earth only 6 months ago with a simple message. "We wish to meet the humans who sing to the stars." The message had confused everyone at the diplomatic corps. Humans didn't actually sing to stars, but Earth's. Radio signals and music broadcasts had been traveling through space for decades. Perhaps the Velthari had heard them and found something interesting in human culture. Now, Yuna was part of the first official human delegation to visit their world. She carried the hopes of billions of people back on Earth, along with her medical kit and a small collection of human art, music, and poetry. The plan was simple: learn about each other, establish trade relationships, and avoid starting any wars. The transport ship landed at a spaceport that looked more like a crystal garden than anything humans had built. Tall towers of blue and white stone reached toward the sky, and everything seemed to pulse with a soft inner light. Yuna had never seen architecture that looked so alive. "Remember the protocol?" said Ambassador Minho, the leader of their small group. "No sudden movements, no loud noises, and always wait for them to speak first. We don't know enough about their customs yet." Yuna nodded and followed the ambassador and his 2 guards toward the main building. Her heart was beating fast, but she felt more excited than scared. This was the moment humans had dreamed about for centuries. Meeting another intelligent species among the stars, the Velthari who greeted them looked nothing like the blurry images. From their first contact videos, they were tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to be made of smooth blue crystal. When they moved, colors flowed under their skin like water. Their faces were longer than human faces, with large eyes that held tiny points of light, like looking at stars. "Welcome, beings of Earth," said the lead Velthari in perfect English. The translator around Yuna's neck didn't even activate. "Am Counselor Borum. Prince Hemin wishes to meet with you personally." Ambassador Minho bowed slightly as they had practiced. "We are honored by Prince Hemin's attention. Come in peace and friendship." Counselor Borum's skin shifted to warmer colors, which Yuna hoped meant approval. They were led through corridors filled with flowing sculptures and walls that seemed to show moving pictures of distant worlds. Everything was beautiful, but also strange and a little overwhelming. The throne room was enormous, the ceiling that opened to the sky. The 3 moons of Velthora were visible through the opening, hanging like silent guardians above them. On a raised platform sat Prince Hemin. Yuna's breath caught in her throat. The prince was younger than she had expected, probably close to her own age, if Velthari aged like humans. His crystal skin was a deeper blue than his counselor's, and gold patterns flowed across his arms and face. When he stood to greet them, he moved with a grace that made Yuna think of dancers or athletes. "Humans," Prince Hemin said, and his voice carried a musical quality that the translator couldn't quite capture. "You have traveled far from your small world to be here. Why?" Ambassador Minho stepped forward. "Your Highness, we come to learn about your people and to share knowledge of our own. We believe that cooperation between our species could benefit both worlds." Prince Hemin's skin colors shifted, cycling through patterns that Yuna couldn't read. After a long moment, he spoke. "Again, your words are logical, Ambassador, but I am curious about something else. Your people send music into the void. Why do you sing to emptiness?" The question caught them all off guard. Yuna saw the ambassador hesitate, so she took a careful step forward. "Your Highness, if I may," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "Humans make music because it helps us express feelings that words cannot. We don't sing to emptiness. We sing because we must, the way birds sing or water flows. It comes from something deep inside us." The prince's large eyes focused on her with an intensity that made her feel like he was looking straight into her soul. The gold patterns on his skin began to move faster. Feelings. He repeated the word like it was foreign to him. Your species makes decisions based on these feelings, sometimes Yuna admitted. Not always, but yes. Feelings help us understand what matters most to us. Inefficient, said Counselor Borum, with a tone that sounded almost disapproving. Logic should guide all decisions. Feelings lead to chaos. But Prince Hemin raised a hand, and his counselor fell silent immediately. The prince walked down from his platform until he stood directly in front of Yuna, up close. She could see that his skin wasn't just blue crystal, but contained tiny lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. You're Dr. Yuna Kim, the human who studies alien life, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Your Highness. I'm a xenobiologist. I study how different forms of life adapt and survive. And you chose to come here, to risk meeting unknown aliens because of feelings. Yuna thought about the question seriously. Partly, yes. I felt curious about your people. I felt excited about the possibility of learning something new. And I felt ... double quotes, searching for the right word, hopeful that our species could become friends. The prince stared at her for a long moment. Around them, the throne room had become very quiet. Even the other Velthari seemed to be holding their breath. Curious, Prince Hemin said finally. In our society, hope is considered a weakness. It suggests that logic has failed to provide certainty. Maybe Yuna said gently. But hope is also what brought us here. Logic told us that space travel was dangerous and expensive. Hope told us it was worth the risk to meet you. For the first time since they had arrived, Prince Hemin's skin shifted to colors that seemed warmer, softer. Yuna couldn't be sure, but she thought she saw something like surprise in his star-filled eyes. I would like to learn more about these human feelings, the prince said. Will you stay as our guests and teach us about your people? Ambassador Minho bowed again. We would be honored, Your Highness. As they were led to their quarters, Yuna looked back once at Prince Hemin. He was still standing in the same spot, looking up at the 3 silent moons above his head. Something in his posture made her think he was asking them a question they couldn't answer. She didn't know it yet. But that moment would change both their worlds forever. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived on Velthora, and Dr. Yuna Kim found herself looking forward to her daily meetings with Prince Hemin more than she had expected. The prince had requested private sessions to learn about human culture, much to the obvious displeasure of his advisors. Today, they sat in the palace gardens, surrounded by plants that seemed to glow with their own inner light. The 3 moons hung in the afternoon sky, as silent and still as always. Yuna had noticed that the Velthari never looked at their moons for very long, as if seeing them caused some kind of pain. Tell me again about human music, Prince Hemin said, his crystal skin showing patterns of blue and silver that Yuna had learned meant curiosity. Why do your people create sounds that serve no practical purpose? Yuna smiled and pulled out her small music player, one of the few Earth items she had been allowed to bring. Music isn't about being practical, Your Highness. It's about expressing what we feel inside. She played a soft melody, something her grandmother used to hum when Yuna was small. The prince's skin immediately began to shift colors, cycling through shades she had never seen before. His large eyes widened, and the tiny lights within them seemed to pulse in rhythm with the music. What is happening to me? He asked, his voice filled with something that sounded almost like fear. I think you're feeling the music, Yuna said gently. Is that allowed here? Prince Hemin was quiet for a long moment, his skin gradually returning to its normal blue.
No, he said finally.
Feelings are considered dangerous. They cloud judgment and lead to poor decisions. A ruler must think clearly at all times. But how can you understand your people if you don't understand what they feel? We do not need to understand feelings. Provide logic, order, and security. That is enough. Yuna studied his face, noticing the way his skin dimmed when he spoke about logic and duty. Your Highness, may I ask you something personal? He nodded. Have you ever felt sad, or happy, or excited about something? The prince looked up at the silent moons above them. Long ago, when I was very young, I remember our moons used to make beautiful sounds. Songs that filled the air and made everyone stop what they were doing just to listen. I remember feeling something when I heard those songs, something warm and bright inside my chest. What happened to the songs? They stopped when our people decided that emotional responses were inefficient. The moons have been silent for over 300 years now. My advisors say this is progress. Yuna felt a deep sadness for him and for his people. Do you miss the songs? Prince Hemin's skin shifted to darker colors, deep blues and purples that reminded Yuna of a sunset. I am not supposed to miss anything. But yes, I think I do. That evening, Yuna met with Dr. Taiho Park, her colleague who had been studying Velthari technology and society. They sat in their assigned quarters, speaking in low voices. I've been monitoring their communication networks, Taiho said quietly. There's a faction led by General Kyung that's not happy about our presence here. They think human emotions are like a disease that could spread to their people. Are we in danger? I don't think so yet, but we need to be careful. Some of the things I've heard suggest they're planning something during the celestial alignment ceremony next week. Yuna had heard about the ceremony. It happened once every few months when Velthara's 3 moons lined up perfectly in the sky. It was supposed to be their most sacred ritual. What kind of planning? Not sure yet, but General Kyung has been meeting with several high-ranking officials. They don't trust Prince Hemin's interest in human culture. I think he's becoming contaminated by our influence. The next day, Yuna found Prince Hemin in the palace library, staring at books written in the flowing Velthari script. Looked up when she entered, and she noticed his skin showed patterns she had never seen before. Swirling colors that seemed almost chaotic. Is everything all right, Your Highness? I have been reading about my people's history, he said. Before we eliminated emotional responses, we were different. We created art, music, poetry, at festivals and celebrations. We even had something called love. Love still exists, Yuna said softly. Maybe it's just hidden. How can you be certain? Yuna thought about how to explain. Because you're here asking questions about feelings and missing the moon songs. Because you listen to human music, and something inside you responds. Love isn't just between people, Your Highness. Love is also caring about beauty and truth and making the world better for others. Prince Hemin stood and walked to the large window that looked out over his city. In the distance, Yuna could see the crystal spires and flowing architecture that made Velthara so beautiful. But she also noticed something else. The Velthari people moved through their city like they were sleepwalking, going through the motions of life without really living. If I were to feel these emotions, the prince said, would that make me unfit to rule? My advisors would say yes. What do you think? I think he said slowly, that a ruler who cannot understand joy cannot truly understand suffering either. And if I cannot understand my people's suffering, how can I help them? That night, Prince Hemin did something that had never been done in Velthari history. He came to the human quarters and asked to speak with Yuna privately. The guards looked shocked, but they could not refuse their prince. They walked together through the palace corridors, past the flowing sculptures and living walls. Eventually, they reached a balcony that looked out over the entire city and up to the 3 moons. I want to show you something, the prince said. He placed his hand on a crystal panel built into the balcony railing. Immediately, the panel began to glow, and Yuna heard a very faint sound, like music heard from far away. What is that? The moons, Prince Hemin said. They still sing, but so quietly that our technology can barely detect it. I discovered this by accident when I was young. I have never told anyone. Yuna listened carefully. The sound was beautiful, sad, and somehow familiar. It reminded her of her grandmother's lullabies, but also of something much older and deeper. They're mourning, she realized. The moons are mourning the loss of emotion in your people. Prince Hemin's skin shifted through a dozen different colors, and Yuna realized he was feeling multiple emotions at once, probably for the first time in his life. I think you were right, he said. I think I am beginning to understand what that means. They stood together in comfortable silence, listening to the almost inaudible song of the 3 moons. Yuna felt a connection to this alien prince that she couldn't quite explain. Despite their different species and worlds, they were both trying to understand what it meant to be truly alive. Neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows below. or saw General Kyung turn away with his skin showing the dark colors of anger and determination. The celestial alignment ceremony was only 5 days away. Dr. Taiho Park burst into Yuna's room before dawn, his face pale with worry. "We have a problem, a big one."
Would you find?
"I've been monitoring their secure communications all night. General Kyun isn't just planning to remove us from Velthera. He's planning to kill Prince Hemin during the celestial alignment ceremony today." The words hit Yuna like ice water. That's impossible. Why would he kill his own prince? Taiho pulled out his portable scanner and showed her the intercepted messages. According to these communications, the general believes Prince Hemin has been corrupted by human emotions. He thinks the prince is no longer fit to rule, and that his emotional awakening will destroy Veltheri society. Yuna read through the messages, her heart sinking with each line. The plan was detailed and thorough. During the ceremony, when Prince Hemin would be standing alone under the aligned moons, energy weapons would fire from multiple hidden positions. The attack would be designed to look like the humans had betrayed their hosts and assassinated the prince during the sacred ritual. "We have to warn him," Yuna said, already reaching for her clothes. "I tried to contact him through normal channels, but General Kyung has people everywhere. The prince's personal guards, his advisors, even some of the palace staff are involved. In the conspiracy, we can't trust anyone." Yuna felt panic rising in her chest. In just a few hours, Prince Hemin would walk into a trap that would cost him his life. And afterward, the general would use the prince's death to justify destroying the human delegation and cutting off all contact with Earth. There has to be something we can do. The ceremony is being held at the Moon Temple, about 10 kilometers. From the palace, security will be everywhere, but they'll be looking for threats from outside, not from within their own ranks. Yuna made a decision that would have seemed impossible to her just a month ago. "I'm going to the temple. I have to warn him somehow, Yuna. That's suicide. Even if you could get past security, what can you do against trained assassins with energy? Weapons? I don't know, but I can't just sit here and let them kill him." She grabbed her medical kit and the small music player that Prince Hemin had grown to love. "Maybe I can create enough of a distraction to save his life." The Moon Temple was ancient, carved from the same blue crystal as the rest of Veltheri architecture, but older and more mysterious. 3 tall towers reached toward the sky, each one aligned with one of Veltheri's moons. When the moons lined up perfectly, their combined light would shine down through crystal lenses and illuminate the ceremonial platform where Prince Hemin would stand. Yuna had managed to reach the temple by hiding in a supply transport. But now, she faced the problem of getting inside. The building was surrounded by guards, and more were positioned on every balcony and rooftop nearby. She circled the temple, looking for any way in, when she noticed something strange. Many of the guards were positioned in ways that gave them clear sight lines to the ceremonial platform. They weren't just protecting the prince, they were preparing to target him. Using her medical training and knowledge of anatomy, Yuna found a maintenance entrance that led to the temple's lower levels. The tunnels were dark and narrow, but they allowed her to move closer to the main ceremony chamber. Above her, she could hear the sounds of the gathering crowd. The celestial alignment happened only a few times each year, and Veltheri from across the planet had come to witness it. None of them knew they were about to see their prince murdered. Yuna found a service ladder that led up to a balcony overlooking the main chamber. Through a small window, she could see Prince Hemin entering in ceremonial robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. His skin showed the calm blue patterns of formal duty, but Yuna could see traces of the warmer colors she had learned to recognize as his true emotions. The 3 moons began to align overhead, visible through the crystal dome of the temple. As they moved into position, a strange thing happened. The air in the temple seemed to vibrate. and Yuna realized she could hear the faint moon song that Prince Hemin had shared with her. It was stronger here, in this sacred place, but still barely audible. Prince Hemin walked to the center of the ceremonial platform and raised his arms toward the aligning moons. This was the moment when the assassination would begin. Yuna saw the first energy weapon charge up, a deadly beam of light. That would be invisible until it fired. Then she spotted another and another. At least 6 different positions had weapons trained on the prince, and he had no idea. Without thinking, without planning, without any consideration of logic or consequences, Yuna did the most human thing possible. She acted on pure instinct and emotion. She smashed through the window of her hiding place and threw herself toward the ceremonial platform, shouting Prince Hemin's name as loudly as she could. The energy weapons fired at the exact moment. The 3 moons completed their alignment. Deadly beams of light converged on the spot where Prince Hemin had been standing just seconds before. But Yuna had reached him first. The human woman collided with the alien prince, knocking him away from the center of the platform. The energy beams meant for him struck her instead, burning through her body with surgical precision. As Yuna fell, something impossible happened. For the first time in over 300 years, the moons of Valthera began to sing. Not the faint whisper that only sensitive equipment could detect, but a full, beautiful, heartbreaking song that filled the entire temple and echoed across the planet. Every Velthari present fell to their knees as the sound washed over them, awakening emotions they had forgotten they possessed. Prince Hemin caught Yuna as she collapsed, her body broken by the energy weapons meant for him, her blood red and warm and so different from Velthari crystal fluid, pooled on the ceremonial platform. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking with an emotion no Velthari prince had felt in centuries. "Why did you do this?" Yuna looked up at him with eyes that were already growing dim, because she whispered, "That's what friends do for each other." Above them, the moons sang of sacrifice, of love, of the terrible beauty of choosing others over yourself. And for the first time in his life, Prince Hemin understood what it truly meant to feel. The song of the 3 moons filled every corner of Valthora, reaching places that had been silent for centuries. In homes across the planet, Valthori stopped what they were doing and listened with wonder and confusion to sounds they had only heard in ancient stories. Prince Hemin held Yuna's broken body as her life slowly faded away. Tears, something no Velthari had shed in living memory, ran down his crystal cheeks and fell onto her face. Each tear glowed with soft light before dissolving. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Please don't leave." But Yuna's eyes were already losing their focus. With her last breath, she managed to smile at him. "Take care of your people," she said. "Help them remember how to feel." When she died, the moon song reached a crescendo that shattered crystal windows throughout the temple. But more than that, it did something no Velthari technology had ever achieved. The song created images in the air above the ceremonial platform, showing everyone present exactly what had happened. The watching crowd saw General Kyung's conspiracy unfold in perfect detail. They witnessed the positioning of weapons, the coordination of the assassination attempt, and the moment when a human woman sacrificed her own life to save their prince. The moons themselves had become witnesses, and they testified to the truth. General Kyung tried to run, but the other Velthari in the temple surrounded him. For the first time in centuries, they acted on emotion rather than orders. The anger and disgust they felt toward the general's betrayal overrode their logical programming. "Arrest him," Prince Hemin commanded, his voice carrying a new authority. Born of grief and determination, arrest all of them. Dr. Taiho Park arrived with Ambassador Minho and loyal Velthari guards just as the conspiracy was being exposed. They found Prince Hemin still holding Yuna's body, his skin cycling through colors of pain and loss that had no names in the Velthari language. "She saved my life," the prince said, when Taiho knelt beside them. She didn't hesitate. She didn't calculate the odds or consider the consequences. She just acted to protect someone she cared about. Taiho placed a gentle hand on his friend's forehead, closing her eyes with the respect humans showed their dead. That's who Yuna was. That's who humans are when it matters most. The aftermath of the ceremony changed everything on Velthera. Moon song continued for 3 full days, and during that time, something awakened in the Velthari people that had been sleeping for generations. They began to feel again. At first it was frightening. Emotions that had been suppressed for centuries came flooding back all at once. Some Velthari wept uncontrollably. Others laughed for no logical reason. Many simply stood in wonder at the new sensations flowing through their minds and bodies. Prince Hemin called for an immediate council session. Standing before the assembled leaders of his world, he looked different than he had just days before. His skin showed the full spectrum of colors, no longer hiding behind the muted blues of emotional suppression. "My people," he began, "we have lived for too long as half-beings. We removed emotion from our lives believing it would make us stronger, wiser, more efficient. But look what we became. We became so cold that our own moons fell silent in mourning for what we had lost." Of the older council members tried to object, but the prince continued. "One human woman, Dr. Unikim, showed us something we had forgotten. She showed us that love is not weakness. Sacrifice is not illogical. Caring for others is not inefficient. These things are what make life worth living," he gestured toward the windows, where the 3 moons were still visible in the afternoon sky. Their song now a gentle melody that everyone could hear. Our moons sing again because they felt true emotion for the first time in centuries. They felt the power of selfless love, and it awakened them from their long sleep. If we want to honor Dr. Kim's sacrifice, we must learn to feel as she did. The council voted unanimously to establish a new way of life on Velthora. Emotional education would be taught alongside logic and reason. Art and music would be encouraged. Again, the rigid social structures that had kept feelings suppressed would be gradually dismantled, but Prince Hemin's first official act was to order the construction of a memorial for Yuna. It would be built in the palace gardens where they had spent so many hours talking about human emotions and the meaning of life. Dr. Taiho Park worked with Velthari artists to design the memorial. It was simple, but beautiful. A small garden filled with plants from both Earth and Velthera, with a crystal stone in the center bearing Yuna's name in both human and Velthari writing. The inscription read, "Dr. Yuna Kim, friend of Velthera, who taught us that the greatest strength is choosing love over fear." As the memorial was being built, something wonderful happened. Velthari, from across the planet, began to arrive at the palace, bringing offerings for the human woman who had saved their prince and awakened their world. They brought flowers, crystals, works of art, and songs they had created for the first time in their lives. But the most beautiful tribute came from the moons themselves. Every evening at sunset, they would sing a special melody that seemed to carry Yuna's voice on the wind. It was peaceful and joyful, not sad like the morning songs of before. Prince Hemin visited the memorial site every day, even before it was finished. He would sit quietly among the growing flowers and talk to Yuna as if she were still there, telling her about the changes happening on his world. "You would be amazed," he said one evening as the moons began their sunset song. "Yesterday, a group of children made up a new game that has no rules except to make each other laugh. Today, 2 of my advisors got married because they realized they loved each other. Tomorrow, we're opening the first school to teach Velthari how to create art." The moon song seemed to grow brighter at his words, and Prince Hemin smiled through his tears. "I think you would be proud of us," he whispered. "We're learning to be alive again." 1 year later, Dr. Taiho Park stood in Yuna's memorial garden as the anniversary of her death approached. He was no longer just a visiting scientist, but Earth's permanent ambassador to Velthara. The changes in the past year had been nothing short of miraculous. The Velthari people had transformed their entire civilization. The crystal cities now hummed with laughter and music. Art galleries displayed works that would have been impossible in the emotionally suppressed society of the past. Children played games their parents had never imagined. Adults fell in love, created families, and lived full lives for the first time in centuries. Prince Hemin, now King Hemin, after his father had stepped down in recognition of his sons. Wisdom approached the memorial with a small group of visitors. These weren't Velthari, Taiho realized with amazement. They were aliens from other worlds, beings he had never seen before. Ambassador Park, King Hemin said, his skin showing the warm colors of genuine friendship. I'd like you to meet our guests. They have come from across the galaxy to witness the anniversary. A tall, silver-skinned being with multiple arms stepped forward. I am Commander Nara of the Zephyrian Fleet. We have traveled here because word of the human sacrifice has spread throughout our region of space. We wished to pay our respects. Another alien, this one covered in what looked like living crystal flowers, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. I am Elder Bloom of the Garden Worlds. Now, people have composed songs about Dr. Yuna Kim. She has become a symbol of what cooperation between species can achieve. Taiho was amazed. How did news of what happened here spread so far? King Hemin's skin shifted to colors of pride and sadness mixed together. The moon song carries farther than we ever imagined. Other worlds with sensitive listening equipment began detecting it shortly after Yuna's sacrifice. When they investigated and learned the story, many decided that humanity deserved recognition. As the sun began to set, more beings arrived in the garden. Taiho counted at least 12 different species, all gathered to honor the memory of one human woman who had died saving an alien prince. There's something else you should know, King Hemin said quietly to Taiho, something we discovered only recently. He led them to the center of the memorial, where Yuna's crystal marker stood, surrounded by flowers from dozens of worlds. Watch what happens when the anniversary moment arrives. At exactly the time when Yuna had died 1 year ago, the 3 moons of Velthera began to align in the sky. But this time, instead of the gentle evening song they had grown accustomed to, something extraordinary happened. The moons began to sing with voices that sounded almost human. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, filled with sadness but also with hope and love. It was a song of mourning, but also of celebration for a life well lived. But here was the most amazing part. Every recording device in the garden fell silent. The alien visitors' advanced technology captured nothing. The Velthari's sophisticated sound equipment registered. It's no audio at all. Yet every living being present could hear the song perfectly. The moons choose who can hear them, King Hemin explained. Only those with the capacity for genuine emotion can experience the anniversary song. It cannot be recorded, broadcast, or artificially reproduced. It exists only for those who understand what Yuna died for. The song continued for exactly 24 Earth hours. During that time, beings from across the galaxy sat in peaceful silence, listening to the moons of Velthora sing their tribute to human sacrifice and love. Taiho found himself thinking about how one person's choice had rippled outward to touch so many lives. Yuna had acted in a single moment of pure instinct, and that moment had changed not just one world, but influenced an entire region of the galaxy. As the song neared its end, King Hemin stood and addressed the gathered beings. Every year, we will gather here to remember Dr. Yuna Kim and what she taught us. But this memorial is not just about mourning. It is about celebrating the potential that exists when different species choose to understand and care for each other. He gestured toward the diverse group of aliens who had come to pay their respects. Look around you. Beings from dozens of worlds, all united by the story of one human sacrifice. This is Yuna's true legacy. It's not just that she saved my life, but that she showed us all what becomes possible when we choose love over fear, cooperation over conflict, and friendship over suspicion. The Song of the Moons reached its final notes, a melody so beautiful that several of the alien visitors wept openly. As the last note faded into silence, something amazing happened. Every being present, regardless of their species, began to speak. At the same time, but instead of chaos, their voices blended into a harmony that seemed to continue the moon song with words. They spoke in dozens of languages. But somehow the meaning was clear to everyone. Thank you, Yuna Kim. We will remember. We will be better. Later that night, after the visitors had departed, Taiho and King Hemin sat alone in the memorial garden. The moons had returned to their gentle evening song, and the flowers around them glowed softly in the moonlight. "Do you think she knows?" Taiho asked. "Do you think she can see what her sacrifice accomplished?" King Hyman considered the question. "Seriously, I don't know if the dead can see the living. But I know that her influence lives on, in every choice we make to be kinder, braver, and more loving than we were before we met her." He pulled out a small music player, the same one Yuna had used to introduce him to human music. "I still listen to her songs," he admitted. "They remind me that feeling deeply is not a weakness, but the greatest strength any being can possess." As if in response, the moon's song grew slightly louder, carrying a melody that sounded remarkably like the lullabies Yuna's grandmother had hummed long ago on a distant world called Earth. The memorial garden had become more than just a place to remember the dead. It had become a symbol of hope for the living, a reminder that individual acts of courage and love could light up the darkness between the stars, and every year hearts could hear carrying Yuna's message of love and sacrifice back to their own worlds, spreading her legacy, one friendship at a time. In the end, the human woman who had died saving an alien prince had done something far greater than anyone could have imagined. She had taught the galaxy itself how to feel.